I focused on some emerging things that are going on in the field of domestic violence and, well, trauma services in general that I think it's good for everyone to know, and we'll talk about it. It's trauma-informed care. It's what I really focused on in some evidence-based therapy that we're doing with survivors of violence. But we can talk about whatever you need to talk about. I think the title of this is Getting Resources to Students. These evidence-based models are out there. They're coming more to the forefront. They're very effective, and I think that's something that you need to know. If we can offer it in a rural county like Rockingham, then other counties also, and I can give you specific resources. I have my contact information, so if from your areas you need more information, that's not a problem. I'll look up and see who I need to get it to. So anyway, we'll get started with the presentation. Is there anything, first of all, is there anything that you want to focus on specifically? Anything? And just as we go along, interrupt me, stop me, ask me questions. Really, I'm very informal. You ready to start then? Okay, great. Can everyone see this? Is this good? Do we need to turn the lights down, or is this okay? Okay. All right. My name is Angie Bowles, and I am the Executive Director of Help Incorporated, Center Against Violence. We serve victims of domestic violence or survivors of domestic violence, of sexual assault, of child abuse, and also elder abuse. So we provide services through the lifespan, and it's a variety of services. But I am a therapist, and I have been trained in some of the models that I'll talk about as well. But I wanted to kind of I got a different catch onto this with my Punch and Judy. Do you guys know who Punch and Judy are? Do you recognize these characters? Have you heard of any controversy surrounding Punch and Judy? It's a very interesting history that they have, and I'll briefly go through it for you. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. Okay, we're talking about something that started back in 1662, or at least that's when it was recorded. So we're talking about something that started back in the 15th century. And the characters are Punch, his wife Judy, and their baby. They're the main characters, and there's some other supporting characters in this puppet show as well. This is how I recognized it as I saw this little tent, and I remember seeing it from various. It was like a sideshow and things. But the core of the story is that Punch is left in charge of the baby. Punch is also he also has many affairs, numerous affairs. And he gets annoyed by the baby's crying, and he thumps his head against the stage in hopes of putting it to sleep, but then the baby cries more. And then when Judy arrives and sees what's going on, she gets on him about what he's doing, and he beats her to death. So he kills her, and he does kill the baby. He throws the two bodies out of the window, and he attracts the attention of a policeman who, he tries to arrest him, and then he also beats the policeman up to death. So he outwits all of these different characters, and then his trademark saying is, "That's the way to do it." It is horrible if you look at it from a perspective of course, we have our own cartoons here that are, and believe me, hey, I'm a Tom and Jerry fan, okay, I am, but because I watched it growing up. So but I mean, the violence kind of permeates what we do, and we kind of overlook it. But through the years, there's been a change. It's always dynamic, the way we look at things and view the world. Am I Jerry Springer? I've watched Jerry Springer, and sometimes it's like, a train wreck. You want to look away, and you just can't. But anyway, let's see. But so here's the change. Over the decades, Punch has, after he's entertained in children, it moved to children. It was mainly a child show, okay? That even makes it worse. So there's been such a public outcry that, they want him to get some anger management. So then this council decides they're going to ban all the shows. But like 20 years ago, that's when they started to think, if kids that have been traumatized are viewing this show, what does that do and how does that affect them? So this is 20 years ago in England, but similar things have happened in the U.S. And so they talked about the use of the cap gun and said that wasn't funny anymore because of all of the things that were happening in the world. So, and this is just less than a year ago. They're making a comeback, but without the violence. So they have revamped it and made it contemporary. And this is like last year was Punch's 350th anniversary. So now the modern day figures, Simon Cowell is in the Punch and Judy show, as well as Prince Harry. So they're kind of bringing it along, and so there's Punch doesn't beat his wife, and they don't drop the baby, and so they've kind of changed it to meet the needs of society or the outcries of society, and how we're a little more empathetic and a little more considerate of the way things affect us. So. Again, May 9th, 1662. Tomorrow, Mr. Punch will be 351 years old. So what a difference that can make, right? So this wave of change has, about victims, how victims of violence are seen. They were laughed at, and how they're assisted has changed drastically. And there's still some people out there who look at victims and say, well, it's they're the cause of it, and we really need, they're the ones that have the problem. They're the ones that need to change. And I'm not saying that people don't need to be responsible for their actions, because they do. They make choices, they make decisions, and they need to own those. So. But we are looking a little more evidence-based, kind of scientific-based, looking at it more objectively now. Do you guys have any questions? And I'm not a Punch and Judy expert by any means, but there is a college. You can get your PhD. Yeah, really. All right, so now we're going to get to trauma-informed care. So in the past 5 years, this trauma-informed care has come into play. And it's emerged in the field of victim service agencies. I guess you would say it emerged with us first. But the phrase has been coined by mainly mental health centers and hospitals to, kind of, it's a whole mentality, it's a whole way of agencies addressing the victims of violence from the top down. I mean, it goes from management down to the direct service on how we view victims and see victims. So this just explains how some things are interrelated. You know, you've got, we need to look at the interrelatedness of these people that are suffering from these traumas. Because, you know, homelessness, domestic violence go together, right? If you don't have a safe place to live, guess what? You're homeless. And also, you know, the mental health issues that resulting from the trauma. The general diagnosis that everybody hears of, post-traumatic stress disorder, we hear of anxiety disorders, depression, all that plays into, and I'm not saying people who have those disorders have been a victim of something, but a lot of the ones that have been a victim of something have these co-occurring disorders. And you also have chronic health conditions as well. Substance use, eating disorders, you know, and also the contact with the criminal justice system. So, so that's kind of what we gather as the basis for this trauma-informed care. We know that all these things are coexisting and co-occurring. So one of the things we do is, you know, like I said, from top down, the organizations, management, and service delivery, they have a basic understanding of how trauma affects the life of an individual. So, you know, some of the delivery approaches that we were using in the past just made things worse. You know, we would ask questions like, you know, what did you do? Why are you staying in this situation? Or, you know, what happened to you? Instead of asking questions like, tell us where the pain is coming from. Has anyone ever hurt you? Those kind of questions in more of a peer-to-peer relationship other than a, you know, I'm going to look down on you and the choices that you've made. So we want to be more supportive and avoid the re-traumatization. So here are the three things in a nutshell that the trauma-specific interventions do. They recognize the survivors need to be respected, informed, connected, and hopeful regarding their own recovery. The interrelationship, like I said before, between the trauma and symptoms of trauma. And the need to work collaboratively with survivors, family and friends, and other human service agencies in a manner that will empower survivors and customers. One of the things in education is an institution, and you see these people every day that are survivors of trauma. And we work with education systems as far as, you know, especially, you know, in job training. We want them to continue their education so that they can. That was denied of them before, and we want to make sure that they get the education they need so that they can get jobs to, you know, support themselves. So we also work with law enforcement, and we have a multidisciplinary approach to just about every population we serve. Elder abuse. We meet monthly to discuss cases that we have. And, you know, elder abuse, anything from fraud to financial abuse to the physical abuse to the, you know, denying food or health care or whatever. All of that falls in the realm of elder abuse. So we meet, and people of our multidisciplinary team are law enforcement. We have hospitals, home health care providers, adult protective services with the Department of Social Services. So we have a wide variety of providers at the table who offer different things. It's like, okay, what does this person need? Of course, and members of the DA's office as well. Same thing with our child victims. the multidisciplinary approach. We have therapists, we have advocates, we have, the DA, the social worker, the law enforcement officer or detective that's investigating the case, so that we can get a true picture of the family and what the whole family needs to get through this event. So it's that multidisciplinary approach, that partnership, and you as educators are a big role in that. Big role, play a big role. Okay, a part of the trauma-informed care is the use of evidence-based therapies or interventions. So these have been around for a while, some of them. Parent-child interaction therapy has been around since the early 70s, treating children who had behavioral issues like oppositional and defiant disorders and things like that. Sheila Iberg in Florida, she's the one that really put parent-child interaction therapy on the map. The Incredible Years parenting program is another one that's widely used, especially in the state of North Carolina. So it's well supported by the North Carolina Child Abuse Agency. It's not a coalition, I can't remember right now. North Carolina, yes. PCA, whatever that stands for. I'll get it in a minute. But so they actually help us with monitoring that program. So we turn in our pre and post test data on that particular program, so you can find out how it's doing and how effective it is throughout the state. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy is specifically for children and adolescents and who have had a trauma in their life and are experiencing some symptoms of that. Cognitive processing therapy is kind of the same thing, only for adults. So those are the four. There's more evidence-based interventions, obviously, but these are the four that I'm familiar with and that we have used or are using or want to use at Help Incorporated. So parent-child interaction therapy is the first program that we used that was evidence-based. We started it in 2006. And you work with the parent and the child to reduce behavior issues generally associated with trauma. So the acting out, the anger issues, those kind of things, the defiance. And it's 12 to 16 weeks of treatment. Most of these evidence-based models is time limited. Very focused, very structured, and time limited. Yes?
With most of the clientele that you work with for that 12 to 16 weeks of treatment, does insurance cover all of that? Or are there special programs that help folks that may not have insurance?
That's a really good question. We offer the service free. We're grant funded. We're a private agency. I hope we never have to charge for services or bill or things like that. But in bigger areas they do that, and it's certainly billable because you have to be trained to do this, and it's recognized. So it would be at minimal or no cost to clients. Okay, let's see. The thing about parent, it involves increasing, a parent's listening skill, proactive verbalization, and decreasing sarcasm. It's like, and you really, they play together. It's special time. They play together, and it's child-directed play. And that's how it starts. And then you get into parent-directed play later to help them learn how to give commands in a way that they can get the results that they want. They start doing it in a play situation, and it just carries over into, general life situations. The problem with parent-child interactive therapy for for our agency, our small agency, it wasn't very cost effective for us to continue to provide it. And a lot of it had to do with, we're in a rural area. Transportation is a big issue. You're taking up a therapist's time for that to kind of one-on-one thing, and it's longer than your normal therapy session. So we still use it, and it's still available. We would never, not have that available. We don't necessarily push it as much, but because the funding that we got for it has ended. But we're still trained, so we will still do it. But it is it is very hard to implement in a small rural area. And it's not like a group. If it was a group setting, then it would be a little different. You also have to record these sessions, go back with the parent, and go over what they're doing and what the child's doing and everything like that. So the Incredible Years Parenting Program, and this is a group, and this is what we're doing now as prevention in our agency. It's a prevention program. So we offer, it's incentive-based, so they get prizes for doing their homework and gas cards to get there, so it takes care of the transportation issue. We get to offer 3 series per year, and 2 is focused on the school-aged kids, parents of school-aged children, and then we have 1 preschool group. And we have, it lasts between 14 and 16 weeks, and pre- and post-testing, like I said, is completed on the state level. North Carolina Prevent Child Abuse. Knew it would come to me. That's who does they actually use a firm to do the testing. The evaluation. So let's see. Oh, I wanted to go back here. Let's see. And say something about this. Oh, yes. A meal is served. Did I say that? We always have a meal. We provide child care, and then we do the transportation. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy is specifically for the children and adolescents, like I said, who've experienced trauma. Their caregivers are involved, and we actually spend about 20 minutes with them, or 10 to 20 minutes with them after the session's over with, just to update them on what's going on, to see what behavioral issues are happening with the child. And it's one of those sessions, a model that is, there's certain things that you have to do. You follow a certain set of guidelines, and so it does reduce the negative emotional and behavioral responses to the child. And it's teaching relaxation techniques. It's learning to identify. It's called affect modulation. It's learning to identify their feelings and able to name their feelings and express it. It's also something. It talks to the cognitive mistakes that they make. I'm bad, that's why it happened to me. That's a problem with cognition. So we address those distorted beliefs, and we do it in a way that really normalizes their feelings. We explain to them that that many children have been through this, so they're not alone, even though they feel alone, and they can. it culminates with a what's called a trauma narrative. So they create their own trauma narrative of what happened to them, and we start from the very beginning and go to the end. And they generally avoid it. They know it's coming, and we make no bones about that. But they go from the very beginning, and I mean everything: sight, smell, touch, everything. Vivid description. Mm-hmm.
Do you incorporate play therapy, art therapy? Do you have resources with even equine therapy?
That's a really good idea. Yeah, we have one of our big supporters is actually Phoenix Lake Stables, and we do this thing around the Kentucky Derby. It was last weekend. That's why I look like I do. I wanted to put on my hat this morning. I wore my hat all last week. So, but he does some therapeutic riding things. So that's always available. He rescues horses. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. But the art is very important. They don't have to necessarily write out their trauma narrative, and some of them, because this works with the kids as young as 3, they draw. They use finger paints. I had one 8-year-old that everybody called her Glitter Girl, because every time we left a session, there was glitter everywhere. She loved glitter, but that's what we did, and she really opened up and was very creative and did some really good work. So yes, we use everything. I bring my iPod in, my iPad, and I let them, because we normally try to end with something that's fun. So I let them play games or, whatever they want to do, Angry Birds or whatever. But the idea of in vivo, is what they call it, in vivo exposure, is gradual exposure. So we gradually talk about this, and really you're desensitizing them to what happened. You're taking the emotion out of it, and by the time that they finish and they're done with their trauma narrative and they have the chance to share it with their caregiver if they want to. Once that's done and they're telling the story, it's just like, so those symptoms are reduced big time. And they are resilient. I mean, they really are. So it helps the parents, like I said, and it does follow that specific plan, and it also lasts between 12 to 16 weeks. Everything is 12 to 16 weeks. So, cognitive processing therapy is like the adult version of this, but it's more of a promising practice. I think it's very close to becoming an evidence-based intervention. But HELP hopes to have our therapists trained in this next year to be able to provide that as well. The Medical University of South Carolina, they are doing some trials and research on this, and I think it's going to be very soon. If not, we've got a training. Actually, we're leaving today to go to South Carolina. To see if I'm going to ask about that and see how far, because it takes a while to get all that things published and all the statistical research stuff. I'm not a research girl at all. So I'm glad there are people who do it. So I talk about Punch and Judy again and what it has to do with American society, and but it's about, the European controversy was about whether Punch and Judy causes people to be violent. And it's not unlike our current American controversy over the violent video gaming, even gun control. Whether you believe that art imitates life or life imitates art, people are genetically wired to group things together, to generalize, to link, to process, and to make sense of senseless things. The dynamic beauty is just the dynamic beauty of being human. in the history of Punch and Judy, we see change. We see growing empathy. And this has led to, for ways for institutions to reshape how they respond to survivors of trauma. And so we ask different questions, and then we use different interventions for that. I'm going to leave you with a survivor story. I want to ask, first of all, are there any questions? This takes about 10 minutes to go through this thing that she created, and I just got it yesterday, so this is how quick it is. She's in college. She's in Charlotte and in college. She's a college student, and she was one of our clients several years ago, and so she tells her story, and it's in music and in she has a couple of letters. I'm going to give you copies of those letters because it's kind of hard to hear to read while you're hearing the music. It's kind of hard. But do you have any questions specifically about what we do?
What my question would be is that I'm a counselor here on campus, and if I had a student come in, and start to talk about being abused, physically, sexually, emotionally, what is the entryway for us? Is it to contact you first? Do we contact the police first? What's the order? How would we do that on campus?
The beauty of trauma-informed care and the way we do things is ask the person. And it can be a male, too. I want to say we've certainly, now expanded our definition of what domestic violence and sexual assault are. But I would ask, I would ask if they feel safe. I think you're talking about just a crisis kind of situation.
Yeah.
More so.
Yeah. Well, I guess I am, but I guess also what I'm getting at is just who are the resources? I mean, there's you, but who are the other resources in the county that we can contact? And if I did have somebody come to my office, even if it's not a crisis, who do we contact first? Is it the police? Is it y'all?
I would say if it's not a life-threatening emergency at the time, to call us. And once we can make initial contact with the person, then we can go from there because every situation is a little different.
Yeah. And obviously, if it's a life-threatening situation, we call. You hit 911.
Even we have that on our, we have a crisis line, and when we do have the crisis line, that's available for you as well. If you're like saying, I've got this student, I don't really know how I need to proceed, call us.
What's that number?
The crisis line number is 342-3332. Our office number is 342-3331. So I'd be glad to talk to you, and I'd be glad to meet with you later at a later date. Absolutely, absolutely. I'm also going to pass out our services sheet so you'll know everything we offer because we have emergency shelter and all that stuff too. So I'll just go ahead and give you our services sheet, and our website is on there as well. So, and I got a card too.
Yeah, please, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Is there a similar sheet for all of the different services in the county? I mean, this is basically what you all offer.
Uh-huh.
Is there a similar sheet for that just kind of condensed version of all the different services?
Yeah, a lot of people, there was an online version of like an information and referral book online at the governmental center. I would talk to, Ginger Waynick actually put it together before she retired, but now Mabel Scott, I would ask her if they have one that is current. That's the problem, is keeping it current, because people change. I mean, the contact numbers change, or and the contact people change, and some agencies unfortunately go out of business and others come in. We have a tremendous lack of mental health services in this county. So if you have someone and you know of someone that needs therapy, generally if they're going through something, grief and loss, whatever, if we have the resources available with our therapists, we'll take them. It's just a matter of, or we'll at least put them on a waiting list, or we'll try to make a referral, if we have to a private therapist or even outside. I think Daymark at this point are only doing only seeing adults. Most of those are group settings, and some people just don't do group. I mean, they just don't do group. So, and I know that they're limited in their resources as well. And we do have some private therapists out there that we can refer to. Well, and you do need also services like Salvation Army. What do they offer? Help for homeless. I mean, we don't have a homeless shelter per se here in the county. We do for a specific amount of time. So there's a lot of, you're not alone, because even the United Way is trying to get their service providers together to figure out, what services are offered here and available here. Red Cross. We have a lot of people doing wonderful things in this community. We just don't know about them. So if we could somehow get a forum together of interested parties representing these different agencies and institutions, that would be great. I don't know how we would, and maybe United Way would be one that would be a good point agency for something like that.